You're representing a part of public defense, so be certain to speak for that portion of public defense in addition to yourself. Everything that happens in this room is fully shareable outside of it too. Just be aware that you're on video, so if you want to turn your video off, that is just fine as well. Each session is recorded, and as everybody knows. So the first thing I want to get into is Autumn Shreve is a presenter and is going to be an employee of OPDS as a presenter in October. So there's someone else that, and just generally, I know we had talked about, and congratulations, Autumn, by the way. We had sort of pulled together who's going to present and gave an opportunity for people to think about that and then come back with any feedback or adjustments or changes this time. So the only one that we'll probably have to do would be Autumn. Is there anyone, I guess two things, Autumn. One would be, do you have anyone internally at MDI that may be a replacement for you going forward? They probably wouldn't want to present, but anyway, just something to think about. Or do we need to look towards another PD for an attorney to represent the portion that you do?
Well, I guess, is the committee continuing?
Yes, and I can talk. I'll talk about that later, and so that's not anything you have to answer now. But if I just want, if you had someone, then great. But if not, then it's certainly something we can talk about later.
There hasn't been anyone that's been in touch with what's been going on, but I'm happy to think about it and ask around.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else that would want to or would be able to present in Autumn's place? Currently, she is. Let's see. Her portion is. This is the supervision piece, and I think last time Brooke had said he could do both. But we thought it would benefit from having two, multiple voices. The more voices, the better. But as a default, I think Brooke had said he could do both. And I don't know if Brooke is online yet.
Doesn't sound like it.
Maybe not. I can pencil Brooke in for now. Or I guess you're.
Yeah, there's Brooke.
Oh, there he is.
Hi, Brooke. While you were out, we volunteered you. Is he on yet?
Yeah, he's now.
Brooke, we were just discussing Autumn Shreve is going to start work at OPDS in October. And so we needed to shift that presentation for the supervision piece, the recommendation. And I think last time we talked, I think you had volunteered for both of those, but we thought multiple voices would be more beneficial and effective. And so then Autumn had volunteered for that third recommendation. Is that something you'd be willing to do if no one else would want to do that?
Yeah, sorry I'm late, guys. Congratulations to Autumn on getting that gig. I'm sorry to lose her as a PD, but good work, Autumn. I am happy to do both. I agree it would be better to have one voice per topic, so I don't have a sense of ownership in it such that I wouldn't want someone else to take it instead, but I will happily do both if someone else can.
Yeah, let me look at that. Trying to see who might be. Yeah, we don't really have any other PD attorneys, but this is for PDs and law firms. Could potentially be Jack Morris.
I think would do a fine job.
Very good. I loved your entrance. That was really good. Excellent, thank you. So the next item will be budget impact. So you saw the budget impacts on the document that I sent out. I think one of the things.
Well, wait a second, Billy. Did you hear what I said? I said I thought Brooke would do a fine job, and you're saying okay. That's
Yes.
okay. All right, just one.
Yeah, I didn't actually hear what Jack said, so I'm glad you clarified. That's fine. I'll do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, for the record, Jack said Brooke would do a fine job.
I'm not agreeing with that I'll do a fine job, but I'm happy to do it anyway, regardless of whether it's a fine job.
Yes, yes. One of the questions we can anticipate from the commission is what sort of priority would you put on this? If sort of anticipating that they're not going to have enough funding to do all of these, what would be the priority? So right now, as far as from high to low, the supervision recommendation is, and these are annual amounts, 4.6 million. The staff to attorney ratio is 2.85 million. The investigator to attorney ratio is almost the same amount, just slightly lower, 2.78 million. And then the administration, depending on what percentage, is probably the lowest of those recommendations. But I want a real quick point of clarification on the administration piece. So that 3% only having an impact of 162,000 is all of the entities that currently don't have any administration, and that is being offset then by all of the entities that have more than 3%. So there would be a reduction in those entities, but then there would be an increase in the ones that currently don't have administration. So that's 3% across the board, and what that sort of balance would be as a result of that. And then that obviously also for the 4% and the 5%. Just as a point of clarification.
Billy, this is Scott Thompson.
Yes.
Is that 3% of the contract funds would be administration, 3, 4, or 5%? I'm wondering what the percentage is of.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'll tell you what, if there's further discussion, go ahead and continue discussing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet that we use to gather all this information and look at the notes real quick. Shelley Dillon had pulled all this together for us and made some pretty extensive notes. I didn't include it all because it was a significant amount of detail. I certainly can provide it, but give me just a minute to look at.
I think Shelley's on.
Oh, Shelley, are you on?
Was earlier.
Well, yes, true. I'm not prepared to speak to that.
Okay, hold on. Let me pull up your spreadsheet and I'll speak to it. I want to say that it did not include that there was one piece of the FTE amount that it didn't include, but let me. I may be confusing that with supervision, so give me a second.
Billy, while you're looking, I have a similar question about the staff to attorney ratio cost.
Yeah.
I have a question about that too, Jack. Let you go first. It may be the same question.
Great minds think alike.
I thought I saved it to them. While we're waiting, rather than just watch me search, right? So, a couple of things to be thinking about is participation in the next phase of the work group. So we're anticipating our next commission meeting will be October 21st. That's when we're anticipating being on that agenda for the presentation. And then we're looking at probably January of 22, that will start phase 2 of the work group. And that would be looking at overhead costs and then FTE rates based on experience. Probably overhead costs also have to do with geography as well. We would be looking at those. Right now, it's just urban, rural. So those two things are a pretty heavy lift. So we would be sending out an agenda and a timeline for moving through that. I would expect that to take longer than what this process did, but would probably be every other week that we would meet. So just kind of be thinking about that a little bit. And then also any feedback about the process. So we very purposely pulled in some items that that were a little easier to lift and come up with some recommendations so that we could work through this process and have it pretty solid by the time we got to something that was going to be more challenging. So just those two items there, just as we get towards the end of the meeting, if you want to be thinking about those a little bit for some feedback, that'd be great. So let me find this spreadsheet. And then
Billy, this is
Yeah.
Shelley. I have the spreadsheet pulled up. I don't know if you guys made any changes to the version that I sent originally.
no, we didn't.
Okay. So what was the question again?
The question was for the supervision, or excuse me, the administration, was that just a percentage of the value of the contract, or did we pull out any portion like staff, administration, attorney, that kind of thing?
Administration was attorney and staff. Overhead was pulled out. There was 3%, 2%, 5% of just attorney and staff value.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
And then Jack, you had a question, a similar question about remind me again.
Staff. Okay.
Um,
You're on mute, Jack.
There you go. It was about the cost for the attorney to staff ratio. I was kind of surprised by that. Is that figure, honestly, I think it might be helpful to go through each of these and maybe just say 10 or 20 words about what the figure represents. Because I looked at this and I'm wondering, is that figure at 0.5 staff per attorney or 1.0 or what?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Jack. Yeah, let me pull that back up here and we can kind of do that for sure. So Shelley, and Shelley, feel free to jump in if you want to do this, but I can give a sort of high level summary, and then if anything is needs to be corrected, please feel free to interrupt and do that. Would that work for you, or do you want to give the summary? I'm fine either way.
You can go ahead. For a great MC person, so I'll jump in if I need to.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. She did a lot of great work on this. So the staff to attorney ratio, what we had to do, because the recommendation says that we would require a minimum of 0.5 staff per FTE and fund up to 1 staff per 1.0 FTE staff per attorney. So currently, we're funding 0.5, but we have all of the information for all of the providers about where they're currently at with their staffing. So if they were at 0.6, then we only had to look at funding an additional 0.1 to what we were currently funding. So that was the amount then, as an example, we would just put, that would make up a part of that 2.8 million. So this is all of the amounts from that sort of exceed 0.5 up to 1.0. And that's what that amount reflects. So it's only the value of those additional FTE that's included in there.
So this is an actual increase. It's just not okay.
Yeah, and it's annual too. So that might be something that, the commission might be more focused on a biennium potentially. So that's the first one. The second one for supervision, we just went into the PDs and private law firms, right? So those are only if we directly contract with a private law firm, not if you're a law firm in a consortium. So, and again, we just went in, looked at the number of FTE attorneys and, you know, applied the criteria to it. And then came up with that 4.6 amount. And currently there's no supervision that is being, like, we don't have that in any of our contracts, the non-PCRP contracts. So that is really a full addition for supervision. And then, and the supervision amount, Shelley, remind me how did we calculate that? We did not calculate staffing in that. That was only attorney and overhead, is that right?
The supervision to attorneys was calculated. It was a 0.1 to every attorney. We counted the number of attorneys, and it was 1 supervisor to every 0.1 FTE.
Right. But the value of that only included the attorney amount and the overhead amount, not staff.
It was overhead and attorney, correct, not staff.
And that's consistent with how we pay for supervision in PCRP contracts. So that's why we approached it that way.
And what's the proposed rate per supervisor?
Yeah, so it would be those two amounts. And so, Shelley, what are the amounts that we used?
The amount we used was the attorney compensation plus overhead. So attorney plus non-urban overhead was 160, and attorney plus urban overhead was 175.
And one of the things too, you know, this is kind of, we're doing the best we can with what we have. So one of the things we're talking about internally is really specifying, and again, this is a phase 2, part of the phase 2 as well, is really specifying very clearly, even in the request for proposals, here's exactly the amounts that we're identifying for attorney, staff, and overhead. So let's see, let me get back over here. And then administration, we talked about administration already. And then the investigator to attorney ratio, again, we just went in, you know, we know how many investigators have been reported, or FTE. Well, actually, it's similar to the staff to attorney ratio, right? We had to look at, okay, how many are we currently paying for? And how many would this add to that? And then that's the difference, is that 2.78 million per year.
For presentation purposes, we'll need to really line out who's here, what we would add to show the actual.
Gotcha. And we can, I'm suggesting this and I'm looking for feedback, but one of the things, you know, we don't want to get too far in the weeds with numbers and spreadsheets and how we calculated stuff, but at the same time, a high level overview of what's included in these costs could be really effective, and we should certainly anticipate similar questions from the commission. So as part of part of the presentation, I was thinking I could give an overview of the process, sort of, you know, when the work group started, kind of that first memo kind of overview. Here's what we're going to do. This is phase 1. We have a phase 2 that we're anticipating, and then shift into the recommendations. Those recommendations, that could be something that each presenter would then talk about how the numbers were calculated, and or, I mean, I don't want to steal the thunder of a presenter who's talking about a particular recommendation by going into the weeds on the budget impact, right? So we could talk about each of the recommendations first without the budget impact, and then we could go into the budget impact and then sort of walk through how, very briefly, how each was calculated, and then talk about the priority. I'm just kind of tossing, I'm kind of brainstorming right now as far as how we might approach this with the presentation. I know we're kind of getting off track here a little bit because we wanted to talk about priority, but any feedback on that or further discussion?
Are you talking about doing it so that you present on the topic that needs addressing and then talk about the budget impact and then move on to the next topic that needs improvement and then the budget impact?
We could do it that way, or we could talk about each recommendation, like all 5, and then talk about the prioritization and the specifics of each one, but that might get too confusing. Push it all to the end.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are your thoughts?
This is Cod. I'm happy to, because I now understand it, the budget impact for the staff thing. But at the same time, it may be better for OPDS staff to present the budget impacts because you're the folks who created them,
Right.
and know them. Yeah, I mean that's
a great point.
Particularly on the
Yeah, we have to own
on
that,
the-
right? We have to own that portion of it for sure.
yeah, particularly on the supervisors. That one is probably the most difficult
Yeah.
to explain. At least
Right.
it's hard to understand. I'm not criticizing it. It just yeah.
No, I get it. I get it. Shelley, you had your hand up, and then Brooke, I see you have yours up.
Thank you. I may be restating what you already just said, but I think the presentation to the commission needs to be the methodology, the formula behind supervision or investigators. I think once we have buy-off on that, then the budget impact comes behind that to say this is how much it would cost if we, had for every 3 attorneys, we had 1 investigator. So I think the methodology and the formula, I think we need that buy-off before we present a budget impact.
We could also, based on the current methodology that's in the recommendation, we could actually show how we arrived at those figures a little more too. We could put a little more detail in this recommendation as far as presenting it, as a document to the commission. That might be a way to get around it too. And then if they have further questions about that, then we can certainly clarify or answer those.
And put together a PowerPoint.
Yeah, PowerPoint with each recommendation for sure. Brooke, thank you, Shelley.
I agree with Shelley about order of presentation and budget impact going last. I would just say, and this is getting a little ahead of myself, but it might be helpful as we transition to the next topic. I don't think we should prioritize which of these is the more worthy ask, because in my view, these are all specific examples in which public defense is broken and in which we are doing a huge disservice now to our clients by not providing these things. So I think we present it as a package deal. They refuse to prioritize and tell OPDS the individual budget impact of each of these topics at the end, but don't segment it and don't prioritize because they're all important and they're all things that are broken there.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's, that's one voice in this work group, but if that's important, I think that's to the work group, that would be important for the commission to hear, for sure.
And this is Cod. I agree with Brooke. They're all equally important, and they've all been, in large part, equally ignored for too many years.
Any other discussion on that? I know we've heard from Jack, Autumn, Brooke, and Cott. Any others want to jump in? I I mean, if you, free to. All right. I don't know that we need a motion or anything. We're just kind of talking about presentation. I'm trying to anticipate questions from the commission. And so the more we can anticipate those here, prepare for them, the better we'll be in the presentation. Yeah, go
I'm sorry.
ahead, Heather.
It's Heather. I'm over here in the corner. I just want to just remind everybody that even though we're taking these to commission and when there is a budget impact, remember we have to go to legislate. I can't even talk.
Legislature.
I've had no coffee today. I don't know what I'm talking. So while we'll get something out of commission, we can't anticipate funding until we get through another session. So we just a reminder, just a gentle reminder about budget.
Thank you, Heather.
I was just gonna ask, and maybe I missed this, but who is someone asking for these different things to be prioritized? And do we need to have more of a rationale about why we're not doing it? Is that a PDSC thing or?
Yeah, nobody's asking. I was just trying to anticipate what the commission might ask, sort of knowing or not knowing how much money, how much funding we have in total. You know, and there's, you know, it's not just for the commission, it's not just a prioritization of these recommendations. It's also prioritization of just across the board increases for contractors, for them. I mean, that's not one of our recommendations, but that is certainly something that the agency is going to be looking at. And so, you know, there's a lot of things that have to be weighed in this, and they might ask some of these questions. I'm only anticipating. I haven't talked with the commission. We've just been sort of discussing this internally and thinking, well, what is the commission? What might they ask? Jack, do you have your hand up? Thank you, Autumn. Did that answer your question? I don't. Okay. Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, I know we're talking about prioritization, and I don't want to derail that conversation, but I kind of feel like I need to jump in and voice my displeasure, I guess, although I knew it was inevitable that we're factoring in the urban versus rural stuff on this. I continue to be convinced that that's just an awful idea. Barnes Ellis proposed it about 15 years ago, and we successfully talked them out of it when we pointed out how much more difficult it is for people in Eastern Oregon to hire attorneys than it is in Eugene and Portland and Salem. So I just felt like I needed to say that. I just think paying urban folks is at a higher rate is really the opposite of what we should be doing, because it is more difficult to get attorneys in rural areas. So.
Yeah, thank you so much for your comments, and I very much hear that, and that is definitely why we're looking at that very specifically in phase 2. So, and unfortunately, it's all we have to come up with a budget impact right now for phase 1 recommendations. But no, you are heard loud and clear for sure. I see a hand up, but I can't tell who it is because it just says +5 on my screen. So whoever has your hand up, please speak.
This is Michelle Bartov. I just wanted to take a moment to echo what Jack just said and express those same concerns. Eastern Oregon has unique challenges and also unique expenses associated with practicing out here, such as increased travel and the like, and the increased difficulty of finding qualified staff to assist us in our work. So I just want to echo those concerns and jump on board with Jack's concerns. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it. Any other comments? So if and again, just anticipating that they might ask about for a priority to be given. Brooke, would you be willing to speak to what you had said about not wanting to identify a priority and or COT, just as a matter of course?
I'm totally happy to speak on that, but I wonder if it might carry more effect if I also made a motion to see if I can get support for that now, so you can also tell PDSC whether the work group supported that as a motion. So if there's not opposition to that, I'm happy to make a motion to that effect now. But sure, I can definitely talk in the commission meeting about it.
I think a motion
And
is
this
just
is-
fine, Brooke. I think that's a great idea to discern how the work group feels.
Okay.
And
Go ahead, Con.
Yeah, and I'll second the motion, and I'll talk on it too if anybody wants.
So let's hear what the motion is, just throw it, so we can make it official.
Okay, I would move that we inform the commission that all of these funding priorities are essential for improving our practice of improving our representation in Oregon, and that we need all of these reforms to improve our work. I hate that motion. I could rephrase it, but that's my motion.
I'll not try to rephrase it, but I will second it. It's kind.
Thank you, Scott. Any further discussion on that or refinement of that? Elena, would you want to put that up on the screen? Maybe that would be helpful if you're here.
Absolutely, yes.
Brooke, did you type that out or did you just sort of speak that out?
I think it's
look
pretty obvious. I just spoke it out.
Oh my gosh. Elena, you are a rock star. Great job.
I think I captured it, but correct me if I need to make any edits here.
Brooke, can you see that?
I can. I'm going to be switching from my phone to the computer in just a minute. So if you can let me in again, I can be more helpful on this. Just a minute.
Okay. While he's doing that, if anyone has any sort of discussion or, potential amendments to that, please feel free to speak up. Jack, I see your hand up.
Oh, it's not supposed to be. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to forget my computer. It's having internet problems, so we'll just stay on there. Yeah, I still don't like it. Let me type something out. I'll mute myself for a minute while I figure this out.
Well, he's doing that. Any feedback on this process that might be helpful for the next phase? Things we could do differently?
Can I address what's on the screen real quick?
Oh, yes, please.
I think that's fine. But whether we pass it or not, I think we need to be prepared to address prioritization, because I think if they bring it up, they're probably going to insist on it. So.
Sounds like the old, if not this defense, then this other defense.
And Jack, this is Scott. How would you prioritize these?
Well, I think the basic one on staff is probably, in my view, the most important, because there are still a lot of attorneys, or at least there were until recently, trying to get by without any staff at all, which I think is a mistake.
And the bonus is it doesn't have a financial impact.
Well, the definition of staff doesn't. The staff to attorney ratio does.
Right.
And that's what I was referring to.
Jonathan, I see your hand up.
Just echoing Jack's point, yes, I would go with staff and then investigation. As far as improving the quality of the services we give our clients, I think those are the two big things that really should be looked at. I think supervision, frankly, could be a little bit more of a back burner issue.
this is caught, one thing to, I think, point out that, on the, administrative costs, to the extent that OPDS pays administrative costs, it effectively raises the amount that they're paying to the attorneys, because that's not coming out of money that would otherwise be going to attorneys, which is what's happening now.
Thank you, Doc. Brooke,
I would be in favor of compensation for administration to be retroactive for the last couple of decades, if anybody wants to go down that path.
I agree.
I see somebody's hand up, but I can't tell who it is. So if you have your hand up, please speak.
It's Michelle again. I think that admin should be prioritized, and it has the additional benefit of being one of the lower budgetary items on the list of impacts. And I agree that supervision would be on the back burner here. That would be the least important to me. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle. We could look at a motion on that at some point too, but we wouldn't. Strategically, we wouldn't necessarily have to, but I think being prepared to talk about it is probably a good idea. Brooke, how are you doing?
Okay, I've got it. This is what I would revise this to say. This work group recommends all of these reforms be implemented simultaneously and prioritized in unison, as we need these changes to adequately represent our clients.
Great. Okay, speak slower so Elena can type it all up.
This work group recommends all of these reforms be implemented simultaneously and prioritized in unison, as we need these changes to adequately represent our clients. Need these changes to adequately represent our clients. And Elena, change that to these.
Before it changes.
No, yeah, another one. There you go.
I was very impressed at how fast you typed simultaneously. And did it correctly. Great job. I see somebody's hand up. Is that Michelle again?
No, can you hear me?
Yes, John. Yes, thank you. Go
Hey,
ahead.
it's John. I know I have a hard time with the word adequately represent, because I feel like I'm doing a decent job now. So I would move to change that to improve representation of our clients. Would be my thought on that statement. I support the statement, but I just really feel like we're doing an adequate job. We're just not being compensated and don't have the resources we need to improve the work we're doing.
Brooke, any comment?
Well, originally I was trying to stay away from zealously because I was afraid commission wouldn't want to spring for zealously. So I think improve the representation of our clients is fine. So we need to change a few words to make it flow to improve the representation of our clients. And then we end it with a prepositional phrase, which sucks, but it's Wednesday and I don't sleep anymore, so that's fine.
And I see someone's hand up again. John, do you maybe still have your hand up?
If I do, I don't mean to.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, you do.
Great. And Kat, still a second on this?
Absolutely.
Any further discussion? All right, if no further discussion, then let's do a vote. we're on a different device today, so it's a little harder for me to see who's all here. So I'm just gonna call everybody's name, and if you're not here, then we won't count you. Let's see, or if I miss somebody, please let me know too. Olcott,
Yes.
Bruce, Tarbox. All right, not here. Chris Kino. All right, Todd McCann,
Yes.
Rebecca Schelliger,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
John Hamilton,
Yes.
Brooke,
Yes.
Jonathan Sarr,
Yes.
Autumn Shreve,
Yes.
and did I miss anyone?
You missed me, Clay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Great. So we have a prioritization. Then we had talked a little bit about the actual prioritization if that is pushed by the commission. Any further discussion on that, or we wouldn't necessarily have to have a motion or vote on that, but it might be helpful to be of one voice in the discussion.
There's a hand.
Oh, there's a hand up. Go ahead.
This is Brooke. One of the reasons I made that motion before is I suspected that if push came to shove, we would all have different funding priorities because of the different areas we're coming from. And that's why I thought it was more important to be unified. For instance, I think the supervision and management piece is the most important part from my perspective as a PD, because that's where I feel I'm not offering as good a service as I can otherwise. So like, that's where I would prioritize, but I don't want to say that to the commission. And I feel that I've seen so many commission meetings where we rank through the various policy options and then we get nothing because we said that we like one more than the other. And I don't know. I think this commission actually has an appetite to hear an answer like, no, we need all of them. So that's why I think we should stay with that.
Thank you, Brooke. Jack?
I think I agree with what Brooke said, but I guess I feel a little bit differently about the supervision part in particular. Supervision is something that sounds really good on paper, but the reality of it doesn't always match up. And I think it's a good example of an item that the big contractors are in a much better position to do than the smaller ones. My experience as a new attorney was that I actually learned more from my colleagues who were at the same level than I did from any supervisor or training attorney or anything like that.
Any other comments? Brooke, you still have your hand up? All right. So one of the things we can do is, one of the things that I'll do is I'll set up a sort of slides, PowerPoint slides. So I'll have an overview slide, just sort of about the process and what we're doing. And then I'll have a recommendation on each, on an individual slide, each recommendation on its own slide. And then we can put in the budget impact, a very brief description of that, so that whoever's presenting on that particular recommendation would be able to at least potentially describe it. And then if there are further questions, the staff would be there to answer them. Does that sound reasonable, and we can certainly go, I'll send that out for people to, give me suggestions, feedback, edit, additions, etc. Probably as early as next week, just to get it going. Any thoughts on that?
It's Scott. Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Thanks for taking the lead on it.
Yeah, really good. And then again, if there are any feedback that you want to provide, even if it's just individually about, things that worked well and things that could use improvement, even if you just want to shoot me an email or whatever, just love to hear about that, because we're definitely going to use the same process in phase 2, and that's going to be a lot more challenging. So that the tighter we can have it, the more efficient and effective we'll be in that next phase of work group. I see somebody's hand up.
It's Todd here. I was just thinking possibly about another slide that talks about the diversity of the work group and all the different areas and disciplines that we cover, and everything that went into making these decisions. So all the different perspectives that are at one meeting coming up with these ideas. So I think that would be good for the commission to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'll definitely include that as part of my overview. But you're right, that could be a separate slide that actually lists out each person and then lists, we have that and shows, because we use that to create it, the work group, was we wanted to make sure we had a really good cross section of a lot of different areas, entity type, role, geography, practice, et cetera, et cetera. So I can definitely put that up as well, and as part of the summary, the overview of the work group. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Autumn?
I was just going to ask, did you already have a full-throated discussion about what phase 2 is going to involve? Just as you were sort of saying, maybe you can find a replacement. It might be good for me to pitch what that's going to be about. But
yeah,
I had to step out for a second, so.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, so phase 2, we're looking at tackling overhead costs, and that's, we're going to get into the rural, urban, frontier, et cetera, et cetera. There's all kinds of different ways we can carve that out. So overhead costs is going to be, there's a lot there. And then FTE rates, just generally, also could be based on lots of same factors that overhead is, and then also, and as well as experience. So those are some things that we need to work through as well. And again, both of those things are ambitious. That's going to take a lot, but it's also going to set, the really, really fun thing about all of this is that, this recommendation will go forward for decades. These are the kind of things that, we're laying the groundwork and a foundation for something that's going to go forward for a really long time. So it's exciting to have that voice in that process. Brooke? Thank you, Autumn.
You asked for feedback, and I think for me, a bit of low-hanging fruit would be tightening our email protocols and subject lines a little bit, because I don't know about other attorneys here, but I'm extremely driven by my inbox, and it always takes me a little while to find the information for this meeting because they're all named the same. So to have just an email saying our next work group on X date and have X date in the subject line so I can find it would be very helpful.
Got it.
Plus a reminder data.
Elena is listening. I'm certain.
Loud and clear. I would be happy to adjust that.
Thanks, Elena. All right. That was all I had. And if you have any other feedback too, feel free to shoot that to me in an email. If you think of something later, that would be helpful. And I will send out the PowerPoints for people to take a look at. Commission meeting on the 21st. So I think I'm off like the last week of September. So there will be, we'll try to get this hashed out in the next couple of weeks for sure. Any sort of feedback on that, so that we can have that pretty tight by the time it goes to the commission. All right. Well, thank you so much, and great job. I really, if I can just put in my pitch, I would really like to see every single person on this work group in phase 2 as well, because I feel like this has been a really effective group, and I've really appreciated that collaboration through all of this. It's been very impressive. So thank you. That was all I had. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you.